Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Free Kick, the AFLW Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host Jono, and today we are talking about the Brisbane Lions. I've got Will with me here. How you doing, Will?
I'm very well, thank you, Jono, and I'm very excited to be talking about the reigning premiers.
Yeah, big team. They had a huge season in 2023, and to be honest, I hadn't seen it coming. Even from halfway through the season, I thought they were a chance to miss the top four, and suddenly, bang, straight to the top they go.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really tight in that sort of top groupings, and it kind of shows that they finished fourth overall with 7 wins and 3 losses, but they managed to win through from fourth. And there were a lot of really close finals last season, which made it all the more exciting. And they did get the benefit of a few of those. So they just got over my Cats in the prelim by, I think it was 3 points. And yeah, in the end, they ended up winning the grand final pretty comfortably. So great run through the finals for the Lions. Yeah,
they seem to have just mastery over those close games because, you know, they had I think it was a 3-point win over Adelaide, a close one over North, a close one over Melbourne. They seem to do just exactly what they needed to do at every stage last season.
Yeah, exactly. They're a well-drilled side. They're a very senior side that has a lot of finals experience as well. So there's plenty to go right for them in the finals, but they did it fantastically, and a lot of that comes down to having a very, very good list.
Yeah, there are a few changes to this list. I don't think we're about to hear a lot of names because I'm going to ask you to go through them, but it is impressive that they've managed to hold together a lot of the core key players from that premiership game. But why don't you take us through some of the players that have left the club in the off-season?
Yeah, they had a really large clean out of their depth players. They basically kept most of their premiership team together, as you said, Jono, with the only one who did leave from that premiership team being Michaela Paunger, who's gone to the Giants and one of our interviewees. But other than that, they lost Zimmerly Farquharson, who went down to the Bulldogs, Annalie McKee, Kiara Hillier, who's gone to Sydney, Ella Smith, very confusing, and Courtney Murphy as well. Phoebe Monaghan has retired, and they've also delisted Brooke Sheridan, who's now at the Bombers, and Caitlin Wendland, who I believe was an injury replacement player.
Yeah, a lot of names there. And just to be clear, Bella Smith and Ella Smith, two very different people. Just very funny names back to back there. On the other side of things, though, they also brought in quite a lot of talent, partially through trade and partially through the draft.
Yeah, they hit the draft pretty hard, which isn't unexpected given they delisted or traded away a lot of their depth. And a big part of that was because they had a really strong academy crop. Being still a state-based draft, they had access to a lot of really good Queensland talent, and they managed to bring in Evie Long, Sophie Peters, Indiana Williamson, Rainier Crozier, and Jacinta Baldwick. I believe nearly all of them were, in fact, academy players, so it just shows the strength of the talent up there. And they've also brought in some really good young talent from the Eagles in a popular pick from last year, Sinead Davison, who will likely replace Michaela Paunger in that half-forward line, and Eleanor Hartle, who will be some ruck and key forward depth as well.
Yeah, no, I think they've recruited quite shrewdly, and gosh, it does show, I think this year more than any other, that there is a real need for us to be moving to the national draft, so I guess I can't complain too hard with the Hawks getting their pre-selection teams players as well, but you know it's definitely going to be a different game at the end of the year when the national draft comes in. But before we go into our top 5 fantasy relevant players from the Lions, we were very fortunate to chat with one of the more senior players at the Lions, the very, very talented premiership player of Sophie Conway. Liam had a chance to sit down with her a few days ago, so we're just going to jump over to that now and hear what she has to say about the Lions' premiership season.
Yeah, can't wait.
Thanks, Gan, for that beautiful throw. And yes, they are 100% correct. I am joined by Brisbane Lion and first-time All-Australian in 2023, Sophie Conway. Sophie, how are you going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
No, it's an absolute pleasure for you to come on. Now, how has your off season been? Just generally, it's been a fairly substantial one, fresh off a premiership, and then also, am I right in thinking that you also signed a contract extension this off season as well?
Yeah, it's been a really good off season. Always nice to have a bit of a break from the footy and change your stimulus up, whatever that may be. So, I changed it up in terms of getting different exposures in from a fitness perspective, which I really enjoy. I think it really keeps me motivated from that end. So that's why I really love the off season. And then by all means. Definitely, a few holidays in there. Got myself over to Hawaii, which was really nice. Soaked up the sun over there, which was fantastic, and the waves, which was really good. And then a lot of it was just trying to get back to work, and try and fine tune and work on any of my growths. And that way, when pre-season rolls around, I can kind of hit the ground running. So I think the off season's one of my favorite parts, to be honest. You've got a lot of areas where you can get better at.
Well, it's almost like you've read my question sheet, because I was going to follow up with, you obviously had a fair bit of personal growth last year because you managed to make an All-Australian season, an All-Australian team for the first time, and I think you may also have kicked your most goals in a single season.
Yeah.
Looking back on your off-season and pre-season last year, do you think you did anything differently? Was it a different stimuli, a different training program, or do you feel like this was just a natural progression that you'd kind of started on when you first kind of came across from, as a draftee, from hockey and then coming across to football?
Well, to be honest, I probably did pride myself on my off season in 2023. It was an off season where I really got to work, and interestingly enough, the area that I really focused on was actually the nutrition side of things, and that actually really helped. From a gains perspective. So I'm 8 seasons in to this, to what we call an athlete
fully
life.
experienced vet now.
And to be honest, it's obviously it's taken me a bit of time to figure it all out, and I feel like last year I really got to work on finding what I enjoy and really honing in on that nutrition side. And I think that really helped me hit the ground running in pre-season. And obviously, I guess I did similar, aspects to it again this pre-season as well. So, I'm really big on, as well as, like I said earlier, is changing up the stimulus. So I really enjoy, changing my environment, getting a bit of different perspective early days. And then really getting back to work and working under Greenie, our high performance guy, and honing in on the areas that I need to hone in on. And I felt like I did that really well last year. If I can give myself some credit where it's due, I feel like that was a big area that I really focused on, and I think that was a big contribution to the season that I had.
Well, credit to you. The proof was absolutely in the pudding, and we're excited to see what that growth can look like for this season, given the high levels you even reached last year. In terms of kind of talking about growth as a squad, I think Brisbane is a fascinating kind of interest case, because this is now the second time you're going to be coming into an off-season or into a new season fresh off a premiership win. And also you're going to be in the leadership group for the second, or, there was in your leadership group last season as well. I was really curious to know, like, how does the coaching staff and the leadership group get a team up and running in a preseason where it's been the pinnacle of success last year, and keep that team grounded and keep it so that it's like, okay, we need to not rest on our laurels. And it clearly worked last time, and I'm curious to know what it's looked like this time as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting. Obviously, you come off the back end of a fantastic season and you win the best. And obviously, I think for us, we've really soaked up last season. And then I guess by us, really enjoying that moment, it's actually made our group even hungrier, if anything. So
Pretty tasty success.
Yeah, 100%. So to be honest, I think, yeah, our groups, day one of preseason, our group came back in, if not the best shape we possibly have in the 9 seasons. So that's a credit to the girls, kind of thing. Like, okay, we got to work last year, and we obviously were fortunate enough to be the last team, holding up that cup, which is obviously what every team dreams of. But yeah, it's always an interesting one where you just, I guess, hold it there, kind of thing. But our group is exceptional at working hard, and I think us as leaders, obviously I feel like we do drive that really well. We do drive a really high standard, but it's not necessarily just from the leaders. It comes from everyone. It's a group of 30, and I feel like it's a big key to our success.
No, 100%. And I wanted to speak about one player in that leadership group in particular, and that's Brie Conan, who's your captain.
Yeah.
I've got a million questions that I could ask, but obviously I want to ask a really important one. Is there a role she can't play, given what she was doing at the back end of last year? She kicked the bag in a final, played down back, played midfield, averaging a million tackles. Like, she just appears to be able to do everything.
Yeah, well, I got the inside
ruck?
goss on her because I'm her housemate as well, so I'm fortunate. I'm pretty lucky to be in that category as well. But no, she's just phenomenal. From her leadership standpoint to the way she conducts herself on the field, off the field. She sets really high standards for herself, and us as a playing group really follow. And to see obviously your captain when she's doing a 10 million things on grand final day, you get really inspired and you want to follow suit. So I think she's continuing to grow really well in the captaincy space, and I think definitely the last 2 seasons she's done a fantastic job in leading our group. And I think, to get the little bit of reward for her last year to hold up that cup with Craig is fantastic for her. But I genuinely think that's just a start for her and her leadership, and I'm excited, to continue to keep working under her. I know me, obviously, being in the leadership group, I get the opportunity to work really close with her and learn and grow, and I've really been supported by her, and she's just a phenomenal person and phenomenal athlete, and it's great to see her get some reward.
Yeah, it was pretty spectacular to kind of see her grow in the last 2 seasons from, a very well-respected defender into this kind of weapon, Swiss Army knife type thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised, given the success you guys had, to hear that she's also a pretty spectacular leader.
Yeah.
You said you got the inside goss. If you said where she's going to play the most, where is it?
I'm probably not going to tell you, to be honest.
Outrageous! I can't believe you would be so cagey.
I'll say forward. I'll say forward.
Unforgivable. Okay, I will take that with a huge pinch of salt. So in terms of leaders, you've obviously it sounds as though where you guys are going to be regaining, a leader in Kate Lutkins this season. Is she likely to slot back into defence, particularly given Phoebe Monaghan, who had been a stalwart at the competition, retired at the end of last year?
Yeah, look, I mean, her preseason to date has been fantastic. It's been great to obviously have Lutz back, like you said. She's obviously a steward of that back line, and it's been really nice, I guess, have her back down there and Lutzy doing Lutzy things, I guess. But I think the most inspiring thing about it all is, we saw the amount of work she put in from the moment Riley got born, and she hasn't, taken a backward step. She's, worked really hard to get to this point. And I think it's a real credit to her. So I'm really excited. She's obviously, still got, I think, so much potential in her. And, she's obviously coming back from a kid, which is pretty exciting, I think, personally. So, But at the end of the day as well, yeah, it's. I feel like we're in a really good position as a playing group. I feel like we're in a position where there's a lot of spots that are really hot, and I think that's a credit to our depth. So yeah, I was interested enough talking to Craig just before, and I said, I'm glad it's you with the headaches and not me. So, but yeah, I'm excited for Lutz, and it's great to have her back training, and I'm excited to see what she can do. Especially in the next couple of weeks with pracky matches coming up as well. It'll be fantastic to see.
Yeah, she's near the top of the list of players to watch at Brisbane, both from a pure football interest perspective, but as fantasy community, we want to see what kind of role she's playing. I've got a million other players that I think, you talked about hotspots. I think it sounds as though if, Jade Prajelli can make it back for an ACL injury, that's another defender who's potentially returning. And one player I did just want to query who, again, had to deal with an injury recovery in preseason last year is Ellie Hampson, who came across from the Suns. She did what sounds like a mountain of work to get to a spot where she could basically play the whole season. How's she going? Is she building into that forward role? Is she spending a bit of time in the midfield and forward? How's she going this preseason?
I think, the biggest thing for Ellie is it's exciting for her because this is really the first preseason where she's, I guess, been able to hit the ground running from get-go and be, I guess, uninterrupted. So, I think for her it's that in itself is fantastic, and I guess really, as cliche it is, the sky is the limit for her. So, to be able to obviously have that mountain of work under your belt, anything, she can produce anything this season, really. So, it was obviously we saw what she could do. She gave us glimpses in the grand final. I thought she was fantastic. So it was exciting
Agreed.
to see her, I guess, get a little bit of reward as well. But now I feel it'll be exciting for us to see really what she can do for our group from day dot. So like I said earlier, there's everyone's producing. It's exciting for our group, and there's players like we've just touched on Ellie Hampson, Lutzi, Jade Pagelli, Luca even, who have had the interrupted preseason seasons, whatever it may be, and they're back firing, and it's really good as a teammate to see them reaping some rewards.
Particularly for someone like Ellie, I think people that have watched her at the Suns kind of knew she had potential all across the ground, and that sounds like the part of the reason she came across to Brisbane. So I'm personally very keen to see how she goes this season, and she was also one of the two players that we got to interview last year alongside Jade Prajelli. So personally invested in seeing how that goes. I also just wanted to grab a couple of quick thoughts, and they don't have to be too long, but on some of the younger players who've joined the Brisbane Lions this year. So Sinead Javison has joined as a kind of wing/half forward from West Coast Eagles, and Eleanor Hartill has also joined from West Coast. Coming across from the West, how have they both fit into the club and the group and the playing group so far?
Been fantastic. It's been really great to have them. They bring a different perspective as well, but I think the biggest, I guess as a teammate, they just brought in straight away from day dot. When they came over here in the off season, they had obviously a couple months to work with us as a group in that off season phase and really see how we go about things. They just brought in.
Great to hear.
So it's been great to see them do their thing in the last 10 weeks. I'm excited to see what they can do as well, especially with prackies coming up.
Yeah, and then just there was a pretty large crop of drafted players, particularly a lot of academy players across to the Lions this year, including Evie Long at pick 15 and Sophie Peters at pick 21. I gave you some forewarning this question was coming, but if you could say which one you thought was most likely to debut in round one, or who would be the first to debut, who would it be?
Yeah, it's always an interesting one because, to be completely and utterly honest, they've come in like the WA girls. They've come in and brought into what we want to do as a playing group straight away, and they've hit the ground running and worked really hard at their craft and worked on their strengths and growths. And it's been really exciting to see all of them grow in the last 10 weeks, especially. To be honest, Evie and Sophie, they play on the wings, so it'll be very interesting if they're probably coming for my position. But to be honest, I'm probably, if I had to give you one, I'll throw Peters in there. Sophie Peters, I think she's done a fantastic job at just working really hard on her craft, and it's she adds a lot of run and carry. So it'll be hopefully she gets her opportunity. Like I said earlier, though, I tell you what, I wouldn't like to be the coaches right now because it'll be a hard one to pick. That's for sure.
It's a stacked roster and very well dealt with. I certainly wasn't suggesting that anyone should be starting in your wing position, irrespective of where they've come from.
That's all right. It makes me better. It's been great. They've they keep me still young. I mean, I still am young, but I guess I'm pretty experienced in this group. But it's been great to have them chopping at my heels as well. It's something that I want to, obviously, as a player and as an athlete, continue to get better. And they've been biting at my heels, that's for sure. So I need to keep kicking into gear.
Oh, well, look, I can't imagine, given the way you feel like you've attacked the off-season, that they'll chop your knees off just yet. But I'm very keen to see how that crop of draftees goes. It sounds like there's a bunch of talent in there. Well, that's all bar one question that we've got for today. And this is something we ask all of the people that we interview on the podcast. Who would you say has had the biggest preseason so far, or stands out as the player who's going to have a huge season in 2024?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's an easy question, obviously.
Because also, you don't want to look like your favoritism maybe or anything like this. But in all honesty, I'm going to say Kate Lutkins. I think because I saw her put in a mountain of work in the off season. I've seen her put in a mountain of work in the last 10 weeks. So I think she's done an incredible job. It'll be great to see her potentially get the opportunity to come back into our side. But if that was one person I had to pick, I think she's done an exceptional job.
Look, that is an excellent answer. I'm not going to suggest there was any favoritism there.
I'll give it that.
There we go. There we go.
Buddy, so,
Well, you've gone a different track. Last year, Ellie Hampson chose Jade Ellinger because they were roommates at the time. And that was, again, I don't want to put anyone offside. Well, Sophie, thanks so much for your time today. You've been great to chat to. And fingers crossed you guys have another amazing season.
No, thanks so much. Yeah, excited. Looking forward to it.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. Gosh, very interesting interview there. It is impressive the amount of caginess that players can find in trying to tell us the positions we're desperately trying to find out about.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell that Sophie's very well media trained. So we can't get too much from that, but we'll try our best to glean out what we think might be the case.
Nonetheless, I think it's time that we jump into our top 5 fantasy relevant players. And I think number 1 on this list is just the most reliable player that we really see at the Lions. Can you tell us a little bit about Ali Anderson?
Yeah, Ali Anderson, someone who I believe I said was an underrated player at the start of a couple of seasons ago and has since gone on to win a W award and was an All-Australian teammate of Sophie Conway's last year. Super consistent, only scored below 90 once during the home and away season, which was a low of 75 in the final round. Averaged 98.3, so very close to that 100. And something that we'll talk about a lot in the coming weeks is the fact that Brisbane is a favourable bye-round team. So they play their 2 games in 1 week in round 4, which is the earliest of the lot, which means Brisbane players get bumped slightly up in terms of their rankings because it means they'll get those double points earlier, and then they're players that you can probably trade out for other double point players. But Ali Anderson's a player who, regardless of that, is probably going to be a very solid pick.
Yeah, I do like the idea of just having that freedom to go, well, hey, if this pick doesn't work out, then I'll just move them on after round 4. It's very nice to have. And I also think they play the West Coast Eagles and the Bulldogs in that round. So having Ali Anderson in your team could be a very big boon, honestly. Pretty excited.
Yeah, and And I will say at this stage, obviously it's very early in the preseason, my team could change entirely by the time we actually start the game. But at this stage, Ali Anderson is in my team.
Ooh, interesting. Interesting to hear. Look, number 2 on this list is also someone that I've been considering after having our little pre-chat on this episode, because coming back from a season away from the game does mean that this player is coming in quite cheap.
Yeah, and that player is Kate Lutkins, who has been a superstar of the game for a long time, 3-time All-Australian, won a best on ground in a grand final. I think the thing that is the biggest concern is she's 36, returning from a pregnancy. Sophie Conway did say that she was fit and firing, but that is something to keep in the back of your minds. But we all know, especially if you're a long-time listener, how much I love a veteran defender. I'm not sure this has the same shades as Chelsea Randall from all the way back in 2022. But regardless, she's priced so low that you have to consider her. She's priced at 27, so 369,000. She's rookie priced, and she's a player that has previously averaged a 74 as her best, 62 and a 53, so we know she can score really well. One of the reasons she's also so lowly priced is she only averaged 36 in her most recent season, which, while a bit of a concern, it was returning from an ACL, which is a little bit different to the pregnancy situation. I think the main thing here is what her role will be. If she is being used as an interceptor, she's a booming kick as well, so I like to get in her hands. I think it's the sort of thing where even if she's not pushing up towards a high 50s or anything like that, there's money to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one of the things that I'm looking at is, if she's coming back into the side, who's someone's spot that, hypothetically she might be taking? And the retirement of Phoebe Monahan sort of stands out to me as someone who played a lot of time in that defense, and she can absolutely just step in, and with her experience is going to be probably not going to miss a beat back there for them. Yeah,
absolutely. She becomes basically a bit of a general there. We know that Captain Brie Conan's been playing a bit more up the ground, so to have a player of her experience, her leadership, and the ability to, control the ball movement around that back line, I mean, what a great thing for a reigning premier to have stepping back into your team, even at 36 years of age.
Yeah, massive. Player number 3 on our list is another defender in that Brisbane Lions backline. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, I've picked Nat Grider at number 3. And Nat Grider is a player who's sort of teased a little bit when it comes to AFLW fantasy, because average 57 last year, was mostly solid, if not spectacular. Usually scored between sort of a 50 to a 70 with a few 30s sprinkled in there for spiciness. There's 2 things that have really caught my attention with Nat Grider. And the first one is she scored an enormous 102 in that grand final against North. So she's shown a bit of a ceiling there. And the second one is that we've got that return of Kate Lutkins. And I'm wondering if Lutkins playing a bit more of a tall role frees up Grider a bit more, allowing her to maybe boost up that score, be a part of, those running chains a little bit more. That'll be a bit of a preseason watch. And the other advantage that we've also already talked about is that early buy round. It's a defender that you can say, well, I'll get the early double points, and if she isn't starting the season fantastically, you move her on after round 4.
Yeah. No, this is one that it tempts me every season. I think she's such a phenomenal player, and in that grand final, you can see when she's on, she's just such a big presence in that back line, and she intercepts everything. The only problem that I have is that it's that opening round score of 30 that you mentioned. It's so low, and that's the sort of floor score that can really kill you.
It absolutely is, and you hope that that's not going to happen, but we know that for defenders, it's always a possibility. She's such an important player for the Lions that she's always going to be in the discussions because they want to get the ball in her hands. She's a really good user. But yeah, if she's playing more of a lockdown role, or if she just isn't scoring that well, maybe not the best. And part of the reason why I've got her so high is literally because round 4, if she's not working for you, just move her onwards after getting a nice, hopefully 80 to 100 points across the 2.
Yeah, she's definitely someone who's floated through my team a few times. I don't think she's currently there, but yeah, there's a good chance round one she's a D3 probably for me. So I like the option. It's sort of these people who pop off in finals, and you're kind of looking at it going, oh, there's just such a ceiling there, and if they could just produce it all year, it would be phenomenal. I think the fourth player on this list is exactly that mold, because what a grand final Courtney Hodder had.
Yeah, Courtney Hodder, she can do it all. She can kick goals. She can take incredible marks, as we've seen.
Oh, phenomenal.
She's crafty with ball in hand. She's a player that the Lions want the ball in the hands of, and she played a bit more up the ground at stages, a little bit through the midfield, and gee, it was exciting. And she presents as a sort of a genuine mid-price option to consider. She's priced at $733,000, average of 56.6, which is okay. But as you said, like, she scored some really great scores later in the season. She finished the year with a bang with that grand final, scored a 92. She also scored 92 in the final round of the home and away season. So she can do it in finals and in the real fantasy relevant stuff. And what was super exciting, and this was sort of part of the reason why Brisbane was so successful across that final series, is they really amped up the pressure across that final series, and Hodder in particular averaged 12 tackles a game in the finals. And that's a huge boost to your scoring.
It's massive, you know. You could clearly see how much it added to their game. I'd be surprised if she doesn't spend at least a good, 30-40% of the time playing midfield this season, if not higher, because I think she really added a lot of zip to that midfield, and so much pressure around the ball in a side that I didn't think they lacked for tackling pressure. But geez, when she was in there, it was really impressive to watch.
Yeah, and you'd hope that the recruitment of Sinead Davison means that Hodder won't have to slot back into that forward pocket to replace Michaela Paunger. And I think that, as we say, they probably want her more up the ground because of her impact anyway. But there is always that worry with a player like Hodder that they might go, oh, we need a bit of a forward spark, stick her in the forward pocket, see what can happen. And that just can lead to a few lower scoring games. So it is a bit of a risk. And Courtney Hodder is one of those players that, regardless of your fantasy, you love to watch her. But if you're looking at it purely based on fantasy times, you can be a bit frustrated because sometimes she's just going to have those games where it doesn't work.
Yeah. I think this is one where, particularly in a line where we don't have a lot of forward options, I think a lot of people are going to be looking for that mid-price player to sort of fill out their team. And she's potentially a little bit on the expensive side, but as an F3 option, I really don't mind it at all, particularly with that round 4 fixture. I think that's two teams that, the Brisbane Lions have the chance to really pile on the pain and score a lot of points there. Hodder could really benefit from that if she is stuck forward in the worst case scenario. So I think the risk is pretty low.
As you said, the forward line's a really difficult one, so a mid-pricer like that could be really valuable.
Looking ahead to our final 5th player on the list, really interesting one, a perennial breakout contender. Can you tell us a little bit about number 5?
I'm going to channel the spirit of Liam here because it's hopefully is this Belle Dawes season? Isabel Dawes, really interesting one. We were really hot on her last year as a potential breakout candidate, and to be fair, she did boost her average by pretty much 20 points, which is what you want from a breakout season. And she jumped her average up from sort of the mid-50s to a 74 last year. And much like Courtney Hodder, the thing that has got me interested is just how electric she was across that final series. And in the 3 finals games, she averaged 93, which is really, really good. Once again, another player who benefited a lot from their high-pressure game style in the finals with a lot of tackles. But she's a player that you can see the potential for her to be an elite midfielder. And we know that their main midfield is going to be Ellie Anderson, probably Kathy Sfark, who plays a bit more of a defensive role. There's just that second big ball winner is there for the taking for Beldors, and she's still only 23. There's improvement to come. I really hope that she can become a player that can be a long-term sort of 100-ish, 90-ish player and make a really formidable duo with Ellie Anderson, because I think that would be fantastic to watch.
It's incredible how many of these Brisbane Lions players stepped up through that final series and how tempting it is. My question to you is, how many of our premiership AFLW teams have backed it up? You know, because it's hard to come back from winning a premiership and do it 2 seasons in a row. We saw Melbourne last year fall out in straight sets. Adelaide the year before. Also, I think they still at least made it through the first couple of finals, but they didn't come back and win it again.
Yeah, I mean, Adelaide to me are the only team that's managed to do it. And that speaks to how elite they were. And they only missed out on the grand final by 1 point last year. So they were pretty damn close to going and doing it again. So with the exception of Adelaide, and we know how good a team like Adelaide is, with particularly in their midfield, if Dawes and Anderson can become anywhere near a Hatchard and Marinoff-like combination, then that would be a fantastic thing for us fantasy players. And I think that it would really be a fantastic thing for Brisbane as well, because we know how talented their midfield group is. Yep, absolutely. Now, look, I suppose looking at the Jono special in this podcast, I've had a real struggle because I think there's a lot of options out there. Not many good ones.
Yeah, some of them have been taken away by
position.
I suppose the position status. So Sinead Davison is one that I've been looking at, but unfortunately is mid-only, which I think makes her really challenging to pick given, you know, her upside is there, but it's not going to be enough to justify that midfield pick given her starting point. Brie Conan as well. I think, you know, Captain Fantastic can only do so much, and I think she's going to be thrown around a lot, and you can't really rely on her as a midfield scorer. But what's got me interested is some of these academy players, because that's really, really fascinating. One of the ones that was talked about was Sophie Peters, who is a phenomenal winger. This is who Sophie Conway was saying was almost likely to shape it for a round 1 spot, running on the wing. And the other one that I was looking at is Evie Long. So I might just talk about both those players because I think they're kind of similar types, and I can't expect both of them to play early on. But whichever one we get, I think, is going to be an interesting option. So starting with Sophie Peters, I think Peters is a very, very, very talented winger. So very explosive, great evasion. I think one thing that's probably a little disappointing is her production around the ground. I don't think she's a high disposal player, which is a little bit of frustrating, and she's mid-only status. So, you know, unless she really racks it up with her tackles, which she does have decent tackle numbers. I think at the talent league level, she had about just under 6 a game, which is fairly solid.
Yeah, really solid.
But I think as a winger, it's at the AFLW level, very, very challenging to keep up those numbers. So I think this is one where as a mid-only, probably we have some better options out there. If we do get Evie Long, on the other hand, who also runs along the wing, then I think this is a little bit more exciting. So Evie Long being pick 15, outside player, very athletic. I think the difference, though, is she's probably averaging a little bit more disposals per game. I think it's still only 10, but can also kick goals. I think she had 5 in the 3 games she played at the National Carnival.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how they've recruited a lot of this outside wing talent, because you've obviously got these 2 draftees alongside Sinead Davison who can play there as well, despite the fact that they've got an All-Australian winger in our interviewee, Sophie Conway, and another really good one in Orla O'Dwyer. So they're not short on options.
I feel like it's something that's trending a little bit in the AFLW is teams are getting faster and faster. And it's just exciting to see that these are the sort of options as people are getting a little bit more clean with their hands, and you can just see the speed come on in the game so much.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the thing that I really like about the Sophie Peters one, which was her draft video from back in December, was titled Sophie Peters is the Queen of the Ankle Breaker. So that speaks to what you said about the evasion, because she likes to take them on, but unfortunately, I think she, as you say, she's a bit of a high impact, low possession player rather than necessarily being a great fantasy option. But
yeah, what I do like about the idea of them sort of, a lot of these rookies are competing for what I think is a very limited number of spots in this team. So I think we're going to see them sort of rotate throughout the season as injuries come along or form goes up and down. And that to me is interesting. It's more that I want to look at these players as the downgrade options throughout the season. So I think it's important that people keep this in mind as we head into round 1. Will, I want to ask you just before we sign off here, where do you see the Lions finishing in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I expect Brisbane will be up in the top 4 again. I mean, the reigning premiers, you expect them to continue doing really well. I think it's one of those things where they haven't necessarily improved their list to a huge amount. Sinead Davison's a really nice inclusion, a very talented player. Lost a lot of depth, gained a bit of young talent, which might take a bit of time to develop, but we probably won't see them early on anyway, considering how solid that side is. So I think top 4 it would be a minimum. But yeah, I would expect that a team like North Melbourne would probably continue to stay above them, possibly Adelaide as well.
Yeah, there's one key out that we haven't really talked about, which is their midfield coach heading over to the Hawks in Daniel Webster. So
I wonder why you'd be interested in talking about that, Jono.
Yeah, no, I think he's a real class unit. I'd be ashamed to miss him.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, now that you say that, I mean, clearly Brisbane straight out of the 8, Hawthorn taking their place.
I would have thought so. I think that's the premiership difference right there. Yeah,
for sure.
Sorry, Lions supporters.
But yeah, I'd expect them to be around the mark again. They're too professional a side to drop away drastically, I would have thought.
Yeah, no, completely agree there. Well, look, I think that's going to do us on this episode about the Brisbane Lions. If you're looking out for us on the socials, you can find us at FreeKickWPod on Instagram or Twitter. And this is actually going to wrap up our club's preview series for 2024. It's kind of incredible. We've gone through all 18 clubs.
Yeah, it's always an amazing time doing this. We love talking to the players. We love giving our listeners all of the information about all the clubs. Hopefully you've learnt plenty. I don't know whether you've been overloaded and now there's too many players to pick in your team, but we hope that we've helped you in some way by giving you a bit of information about all of the teams and who we think is good to pick.
Yeah. No, it's a lot coming at people. It's going to be a relief, I'm sure, for both us and the listeners that we're not releasing daily episodes anymore. We're going to be going down to a little bit less frequency. But we're going to come back next week. We're going to have an episode sort of chatting about last-minute tips before the season starts. And then we'll get back into our regular weekly programming throughout the season. And we can't wait until footy starts. We're getting so close now.
Oh, yes. I mean, we've had practice games happening over the preseason, but the real stuff is so close, as you said, Jono. You can almost taste it. It's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look. We're going to catch you next week. Have a good night, everyone, and the rest of your day, wherever you're listening to this. And we'll see you next time.
See you, everyone.
Bye.